URC is back, and so my name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. So the URC was on a break, and so was I. I had holidays, a little bit of sickness, then work was busy too. I was going to cover some of the rugby championship, but when I missed a couple of rounds, then it was kind of like, yeah, I don't want to jump in the middle of it. So I decided that this was the best time to bring the videos back. You know, new season in the Northern Hemisphere, new season of URC is very exciting. I'm re-energized now. The league, I think, was absolutely fantastic last year, and hoping for more of the same this year. So this is going to be our standard preview for the fixtures that are on at the weekend, and then just, you know, a little bit about you know, what I think the prospects are for each team for the season, but not too much. I was going to do like a preview video for each of them, but again, time kind of got away from me. But at least we're doing this. We're going to be watching some of the games over the weekend as well and reviewing those. And those will be up on the channel. And as always, we will have a review of the entire round of games coming out probably Monday evening. Oh, and one thing I'd like to say as well is, you know, I'm not sponsored by them, but URC TV, if you don't have access, you know, on some other kind of sports platform for the games, absolutely fantastic deal. €59.99 for a 12-month pass. I thought it was a season pass. It's a 12-month pass. Now, you know, season only comes once every 12 months anyway, but it does mean that my one, because the season start, when did the season started late last year, right? Because of the World Cup, means that I'm getting the first few rounds included in last year's package. Now, normally, obviously, that wouldn't happen, but, you know, happy days, I guess, at the moment. But I'm absolutely going to renew when it does come up. But let's get on to the actual rugby itself. So, first game, and just before I say, apologies if you can hear that, it's some neighbour's alarm for the car or something is going off. You know, I think toddlers may be trying to steal it or something. But let's get back to this. So, first game, Friday, we got two of them. Friday, September the 20th, 7:35 kickoffs. That is, I guess, BST, right? We haven't switched our clocks yet. Edinburgh versus Leinster is first up at the Hive Stadium. So, Edinburgh last year, they finished in, I'm pretty sure it was 11th place. Let me just double check here. 10th on the log. But to my mind, you know, let themselves down really in that final game against Benneton. They knew it was like a kind of a winner takes all situation, and Benneton were the ones that turned up, not them. Now it's away from home, and Benneton did have a pretty good season, but, you know, I felt it would have been kind of a step forward for Edinburgh to actually be able to pull that off and get into the playoffs. And it would have been kind of similar to the way Glasgow last year have, I think, taken a major step forward. Would have been a big step forward for Edinburgh as well, in terms of not just their competitiveness in this league, but also just to carry into European games as well. Being able to deliver on a big occasion, you know, is where a lot of teams, you know, good teams, really good teams, or even excellent teams kind of struggle. And we've seen it even with like behemoths like Leinster, you know, in the last few seasons as well, where it's being able to, you know, it doesn't matter if you can hockey everyone in the league, you know, 9 times out of 10, if you can't beat them on that 10th time where it's a game in a final that really matters, or wherever, a semi-final, then, you know, that's a step that as a collective that team has to take. And again, I don't feel like it matters whether the team is packed full of internationals that won tons of stuff with their national team. For me, it's a different collection of players, even if a lot of them, you know, Edinburgh similar to Leinster, I think, and Glasgow similar to Leinster and Munster, and kind of Ulster as well, where a lot, they make up a big contingent of their national team, but it's just a different dynamic at like club level or provincial level. You know, that winning as that collective together, I think just has a very different effect on the players. So that's basically what we've got here. We've got Edinburgh, who finished 10th and didn't deliver, I felt, in that game against Benneton, versus Leinster, who, for the 3 seasons we've had the URC, been the favourites at the start of the season and haven't lifted the trophy, haven't even made it to a final, let alone lifted the trophy. And I haven't looked at the bookies, but I guess betcha is the right phrase, right? Betcha they're the favourites again this year, because people just look at their squad and go, how can that squad not win the league? Well, it's because this league is so competitive and so fantastic, that even a squad like Leinster have to be on their A game to progress through the knockout stages and to put themselves in position to progress through. We saw that last year where, they faltered a little bit at the start of the season, did a little bit of catch up and then fell away again, did that stupid thing of sending, the kids off to South Africa again, got absolutely spanked and deservedly so for it, and that put them in a position where they finished 3rd on the log and they lost that semi-final against the Bulls. So you've got 2 teams here who really want to, make up for last season and get started on the front foot in this. And I think because of that, you're going to see very competitive game, especially early on. But I think that, I'm going to back Leinster in this one to pull through. Last year, they did lose the opening game against Glasgow. They won't want, another defeat against the Scottish team as their opener to the season. So, hopefully lessons learned from Leinster for last year. If Edinburgh win, it's going to be, I think, another good start to the season for them. And that's something they've been good at, but it's then carrying that momentum through after the Six Nations and being able to then, finish strongly. The teams who finish strongly are the teams who obviously are going to end up in the finals and lifting the trophy the way Glasgow did last year. So a lot kind of, I wouldn't say a lot riding on this game particularly, but a lot riding on this season for these 2 squads of players, both, immensely talented, but neither of them have really lived up to their potential in this competition to date, I feel. So maybe for one of them, it's going to be the season where it's going to be a breakout season. Not necessarily like talking about Edinburgh. If Edinburgh could get, to a quarter-final or a semi-final, that's going to be a big step forward for them. For Leinster, it's getting to a final or lifting the trophy is where they're at. So a little bit of difference in terms of maybe, what would be expected of the teams this year, and then what would be beyond those expectations, as it were, and kind of showing progress, but still going to be a competitive game. But yeah, I'm going to go for Leinster in that one. Next then, on also a Friday game, so 7:35 kickoff, is Cardiff versus Zebre. This one's at Cardiff's Arms Park. These are 2 teams who I feel had kind of understated but good seasons last year. Not fantastic, not real standouts, like both outshone by another team from their country, but still, definitely a step forward from both of them. Cardiff, I did a season review, and when I went through it, I think Cardiff lost like 10 games by within the losing bonus points, so 7 points or less. And you think about that and you look where, they finished, 12th on the log. I think they were the next after Edinburgh now, or after Connacht, sorry. And there was a bit of a gap there in terms of points, but, they had 32 points to Connacht's 42. But they start winning some of those tight games, and suddenly you can see them being, in the mix there, kind of the way Ospreys were last year, and it's a young squad as well. So you would expect them to kick on from here. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes, young players come in, they're fantastic for that, first season because they have no fear. Then suddenly second season syndrome kicks in, and if a few of them drop off, suddenly, instead of looking up and trying to battle against the likes of Connacht, Edinburgh, Lions, Ospreys, Benneton, that kind of group there. Instead, maybe, they're battling out with like the Scarlets, Dragons, Zebre, at the wrong end of the table again. So, again, another team where this could be a big season in terms of taking a step forward. Then, Zebre, I thought like the last few seasons they recruited really well, and no longer are they the team that are like adrift at the bottom of the league anymore. They're competitive, especially at home. They did finish last in the league last year, but obviously, the only way is up for them. And if you look at the way, like the season that they had last year and the trajectory they're on versus the Dragons, who finished just 1 point ahead of them, then, it's looking like if Zebre can continue improving at the rate that they are, and the Dragons just keep kind of, almost like a flat line for the Dragons, really, right? Zebre are gonna finish above them. So, there is like a lot of incentive for Zebre as a club and as a squad of players as well this season, that, all that hard work that they put in over the last couple of seasons, they may, get some fruit from that. But one thing that we saw from Zebre last year was still not very competitive on the road. Yes, they had a couple of games where they turned up away from home, but absolutely nowhere near enough, in terms of being able to threaten for away victories. And because of that, then I've got to pluck for a Cardiff win in that one, and for the Cardiff boys to get off. And while we're here as well, where we're talking, about especially a Welsh team, I want to touch on something that came up, I think it was on the BBC. They were talking about, is a British and Irish league closer than ever, etc., etc. And for me, that was just, someone just stirring the pot. Someone who obviously doesn't watch this league, because he was talking about how attendances were down and TV money wasn't that great. Like the URC has like a huge TV deal, especially compared to the Premiership, and I think better than the top 14 as well. In terms of, top 14 obviously is the model, in terms of they've got the top 14 in the Pro League 2, and they're able to support that many professional teams. But the URC is on that trajectory to get there, whereas the Premiership, like 3 teams have gone bust in the last year or so in the Premiership, and they got the Championship there. Those teams can't get promoted. Like the winners of the Championship last year, Jersey went to the wall as well. And, whatever about like the quality of the rugby that they have, the model itself is just terrible. And from my point of view, not just as a Leinster fan, because I think if you watch this channel long enough, I'm a URC fan, and I back all of the teams in the URC. And I feel like, that's not something that the Irish teams want to get mixed up in, or the Scottish teams. I don't know about the Welsh teams, because they obviously have huge financial difficulties themselves, and you can see the attraction of looking over the border, and there are towns close to them, and thinking, oh yeah, we could be playing them every couple of weeks, rather than having to go down to South Africa or over to Italy or over to Ireland or wherever, right? So you can see the attraction there, but I don't think that that's suddenly going to, revitalise Welsh rugby and bring in tons of new fans and stuff like that. Because for me, if you're a rugby team and you're relying on the away team to fill your ground, that's a problem, right? Your ground, should be, the vast majority should be your own fans, right? And it should be a case of where, like, you look at the likes of Connacht, and you look at Leinster as well, and Munster in recent years, and also all the Irish provinces, actually Ravenhill, they've got to do something there to increase the capacity there. You want it to be at the stage where you're so full that almost, you not that you don't want away fans, but you can't fit too many of them in, right? And you want to make your stadium bigger because you want to get more fans in. That's not happening in Welsh rugby, and there's a lot of reasons for that, like a lot of disillusionment, and maybe the reasons weren't set up, taking into account, where fans were and where their loyalties were, etc. But away fans, other than if you're playing Munster in a big European game, away fans are not going to fill out your stadium. Like Munster could fill almost anyone's stadium when they go on the road, like in, quarterfinal, semi-final, of like a Champions Cup. But other than that, you cannot be relying on the away fans, to be making up the shortfall for you. You've got to stick and look after your own fans first, and look at where, like, the issues obviously in Welsh rugby go really deep, and I can't touch on everything here, but I just feel like that a British and Irish league is not the answer for anything like that. And I probably should have made another video about that when it come up, but I didn't. So we'll move on. But that's kind of my opinion on that. So yeah, I'm going to go for a Cardiff win there anyway. On to Saturday then, Saturday, September 21st. So 3:00 kickoff is Dragons versus Ospreys. So a Welsh derby here. It's at Rodney Parade. Got the Dragons who, I've talked about it last year as well. When Di Flanagan took over, they had that bounce, right? But since then, I haven't seen, like last year, no real progress from. Yes, there's a couple of really good players coming through the system, but like you would expect a professional team to have at least a couple of like really good players playing for them, But the overall standard just doesn't seem to be there, and that ability to stick in games doesn't seem to be there either. Like, once they go behind by more than a score, you're almost certain that they're going to lose the game. That you never really see them coming back at teams, and they're kind of almost the old, when we had that transition from amateur era to professionalism, and you had certain clubs or certain nations were, in there, were maybe a decade or something ahead of other unions or wherever, right, in down the line. It almost feels like that with the Dragons, where they can be competitive for a certain amount of the game, and then they're going to fall away at the end in most games. Not all games, but most games. So something like they've got to do something there, like in terms of, maybe bring in, some more younger players the way Cardiff did, and giving them a go and seeing, if that's going to help them there. Or, I don't like the idea of like being like football, where you're changing coaches every season because the coach isn't delivering. But you still have to, coaches still have to be accountable for what's happening. And if it just feels like with the Dragons that you don't see a pathway for them in terms of improvement. Now, we might be seeing it this year, and I think that's the thing, is that this time of the season is when there's more optimism than any other time of the season, right? Everyone's thinking it's a new season. If we get a win, we have a bit of momentum, and it could be our year to do whatever, right? Whether it's to make the playoffs, or to not finish last in the league, or to win the competition outright, or wherever it happens to be, right? So there's all that optimism around, and hopefully, like with Dragons, they can get a good start. And sometimes that's what it is, right? You get confidence into a squad, and suddenly it's night and day compared to the previous season. So let's hope, for Dragons' sake, that that's what happens to them. But a team that did perform last year is Ospreys, the team that they're playing. I thought Ospreys were excellent last year. That miracle, what was it, 3% chance with 2 games to go or something they had of making the playoffs, and they made the playoffs. Fair play to them. Now, they did lose then, their quarter-final game, but they made the quarterfinals, and that's a big step forward for them. And again, it's something they can build on. They felt like they didn't really turn up against Munster in that one, in terms of, wouldn't have felt like that it would be their proudest performance. But looking back at the season, those guys have to be proud of the way they performed. I think it was, fantastic season for them, and hopefully they do build on it, because something that the URC is missing is the Welsh teams being competitive, and we want to see them being more competitive. I'm not one of these people, that looks over at the Welsh, the state of Welsh rugby and thinks, it serves them right or anything like that. It's like, I feel sorry for the fans those teams. And I feel sorry for the fans as well in terms of all the speculation of oh, should we get rid of one of the regions, or should we just scrap all of the regions and then go back to this system? And then what do you do with the fans then? If you're a fan of Ospreys and then now, or Dragons or wherever, and now they're gone, and now you've got to find somebody else to support, and they just expect you to switch your support to the new team. Like, I think it's really, disrespectful to the fans as well with all of that kind of stuff. Like, from my point of view, like, the regions are there, and, either you back them or you don't. This middle ground crap of, like, because the talk has to be coming from somewhere, right? It can't just be idiots on like Twitter or whatever it's called, X now, putting all this stuff out. There's obviously tension within the WRU as well, and from my point of view, it feels like the WRU just had to say the regions are here to stay. We're going to give them our full backing, and here is the plan of how we're going to do that, how we're going to support them, how we're going to provide young players for them and give a proper pathway, etc. But as I said, I'm really happy that Ospreys had a great season last year. I hope they build on that, and I hope that builds into not just being competitive in the URC, but being competitive in Europe as well, because we want to again see more URC teams being competitive there. In terms of this game, I'm going to go for an Ospreys win, because basically what I talked about, like Dragons, I haven't seen them, performing well enough in enough games. Yes, it's a Welsh derby, and I might pick things up start of the season, etc. But Ospreys have just delivered on more occasions that they have. I think the Ospreys will take the win there. Okay, next time we have another derby. It's a 5:30 kickoff. This is Munster versus Connacht in Thomond Park. So, Munster champions 2 seasons ago versus Connacht. Connacht, who, very similar to Edinburgh, where they had that chance to make the playoffs and just fell away at the end, and that would be disappointing for them. New coaching team there, albeit coming from the part of the old coaching team, but it felt like it was that game against the Lions where Lions get a man sent off early, and then Connacht fall apart and Lions absolutely destroy them, and that's a sports ground as well. So, very disappointing end to the season for them. It's far too inconsistent for my liking as well from Connacht. Not just last season, the last few seasons as well. They're up and down within games, from game to game. There doesn't seem to be any consistency in performance, and you can't keep going like that and expect to be making playoffs. Like, it's basically almost Russian roulette with them, and half the time when it does fire, it's pointing at their own foot. But yeah, it needs to be a lot better from Connacht, I feel, this year. We need to see strides going forward. It's good to see, the sports ground being redeveloped, etc. And, that's obviously going to help them in terms of finance in the future, etc. And then, you have Munster as well. They were the defending champions last year, so champions 2 years ago. Finished top of the log as well. Top seeds going into the playoffs, and probably felt like, back-to-back finals was on the cards to them. But, it turned out that it was a fantastic performance by Glasgow at Thomond that knocked them out. And that, from Glasgow's point of view, I felt like Glasgow got better as they progressed through those playoffs, and that's what you want. You want your team peaking in the final, and that's exactly what they did. Munster, though, making the semi-final, having been the defending champions as well, you can see that they're, at least at the URC level, it feels like they really are back as a force. We haven't really seen that at Champion Cups Champions Cup level yet, but it feels like they're on the right trajectory for that. Last year, I think one of the big things for Munster was that disruption in the midfield. Like when you look at the season before, with the midfield pairing that they had in there, and then, to really not have either of those for last season was very disruptive for them, and it felt like there was a lot of chopping and changing within the team as well. There was a lot of young players who were coming through. Start of the season were fantastic. Then there were some injuries unavailable, etc. And those players didn't really develop as much as maybe we thought that they would. Although there were some fantastic players who all through the season as well. Some young players coming through there. So it feels like there's a good crop there at Munster, and given that they have the, already established players there as well, some of them obviously, the likes of Pierre Romani, not too much longer, going to be around there, but it feels like it's a good time now because you have a lot of young talent coming through, and that talent needs to play as well. So Munster, it feels like it's going to be, another good season for them, and I can only see really one winner in this one. Obviously, it's an Irish derby, so kind of like Dragons versus Ospreys. Connacht absolutely will be up for it, and they could cause an upset, but you'd have to go for Munster or Thomond Park with that one. Okay, at 7:35 then we have Benneton versus Scarlets. So this is at the Stadio Monigo. Benneton, it felt like, the peak of their season was that game against Edinburgh, where they absolutely, put their hands up and said, that playoff place is ours, it's not yours, and we're taking it. And that's what they did. They took that playoff place from Edinburgh, and that was a fantastic performance for them. But they're getting better season on season. Like at one stage, they were right up there, like second in the log, and I think I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they were the last team to suffer defeat, or like the last team to lose their unbeaten streak last year. I think they had like a draw or two and a few victories or something before losing. Just didn't get enough really winning bonus points to keep them up there at the sharp end of the table, and then kind of dipped a little bit. But they finished well, and they got that playoff place in the end, versus a Scarlets team who, last year produced some amazing rugby and some fantastic tries, but often in defeat. And, from Scarlets, we want to see like more 80-minute performances, not patches in games, like 20-minute spells of like, scoring, end-to-end tries and all this kind of stuff. That's brilliant. Keep that coming, but let's get a bit more dog into as well, and let's be a bit more competitive, through the game and all through the season as well. That's really what we want to see from them. And again, we want to see more Welsh teams being competitive. I want to see teams that are, like last year, we had so many teams fighting out for those playoff places, and I want to throw a couple of more teams in there as well, so that it feels like going into the last 3 or 4 games that, almost everyone in the league could still make the playoffs. That's really what we're aiming for. Obviously, it's not going to happen because a couple of teams are always going to be, towards the bottom, being unlucky or wherever it is, the wrong sides of too many scorelines. But that's what you want to aim for, right? Is for more and more teams for longer and longer in the season to still have that chance to make the playoffs. So Scarlets are a team I felt who have to take steps, to get there. Benneton, I feel like, are a team that are there, but I don't think Benneton are at the end of the journey either. Benneton feel like a team that, not necessarily this group of players, but a club who are building towards lifting the trophy for the first time. And, they're going to continue on that as well. And I expect that they're going to make the playoffs. And I expect, therefore, that they're going to win this game as well. But I want to see a Scarlets team who are competitive all through the game as well. And, are right there towards the end as well, potentially for the win, and then continue that through the rest of the season. Then we have fantastic one here. It is a big game here because you got Ulster versus Glasgow. So Ulster, all that disruption last year, they got their new coach in there now, his first full season with the squad versus the defending champions. I'm wearing my Glasgow jersey, which I have to say I absolutely love this jersey. And I'm wearing this in their honour because they won the championship last year. If you were watching my preview of that, I said that I would get the jersey of the winner. And I've fulfilled my promise. I also want to get a Bulls jersey as well. So I have to find out if anybody's had any recommendations of, where I can get jerseys for non-Irish teams. Let me know, because a lot of places where, because I kind of got stung on this, honestly, because I bought it from a UK distributor or whatever, a UK online store, and they charged me VAT on it, and it was at a higher price because on the official, I wanted to buy it from the Glasgow Warriors store first, but they were all sold out. But on their official one, they had it at a lower price, 50% off, but no stock. But then, so I had to pay full price plus VAT, plus then I got charged VAT in Ireland as well, which shouldn't happen because you should only have to pay, that tax once because of the taxation agreements between the countries, and delivery charge as well. So I'm delighted with the jersey, not so delighted with the actual experience of getting the jersey. So if anybody has any tips and it doesn't have to be for all jerseys, it can be just for a certain country or wherever, because I want to get a Bulls jersey by Christmas. So I know, I want to get it as my birthday Christmas present. But I'm going to have to order, obviously, because I don't want my wife having to go through all that crap. But yeah, if you have any suggestions for that, let me know. But back to this. So Ulster versus Glasgow. Glasgow, well, let's start Ulster first because they're home team, and that's what we've been doing. So Ulster last year, a lot of disruption, very up and down. They had a middle period of the season as well, where absolute disaster. Ended up, head coach McFarland leaving as well. New coach in place. First of all, temporary, and then there was mutings of, this other guy is coming in at the end of the season, blah blah blah. But then they said, no, we're sticking with you, and that was good to see that they made that call and kind of put an end to all the speculation as well, because that's never good for a squad when you're trying to get them to do your way, and they're thinking, well, you might be here next year, so why we listen to you? So it's good from that point of view. With it's Murphy in there, right? And they're in there now. This year, it feels like they just got to say, right, whatever happened last year, all the upset now, we need to move forward from here, and we need to do it as a collective. I still feel there's stuff to be sorted further up the chain at Ulster, because I don't think everything is hunky-dory there, and maybe that's going to happen in the future. But in terms of just the playing side of things, they definitely do have some great players coming through. I don't know what the deal is with 10s there, honestly. How they were coming towards the end of the season where they had no real recognised 10. And then you look at Leinster, where you got so many 10s there. And obviously, I've talked about this before, where you can't just say to a player, listen, you're going to Ulster and that's the end of the story. They've got families. This is their job. It's not like we all think of it as, well, it'd be better for Ireland if, this guy went to Ulster and etc. And why don't they do that? Why don't they want to play? And it's not, you have to think of it in terms of yourself as well. If it was your job and you like your job, you like the people you work with, and you like where you live, and you like where, if you got kids or you plan to have kids, you like the area, you want your kids to go to school there, the family is there as well. If you are going to be you may be starting a family or wherever, you want to be close to your family, you don't want to be far away from them. So there's so many considerations for it, right? It's not just a case of you just have to make a rugby decision and say, oh, I want to play more games of 10. If I go up to Ulster, I can. But having said that, it feels like, I don't know whether those conversations are happening is the problem, right? Because you look at Leinster now and you think that, like the way Frawley played in, down in South Africa, you got to be feeling like he's going to want, he's not going to be happy now with just being 23 anymore. He wants starts at 10. You got Prendergast coming through, who's an absolute talent as well. He has to have starts at 10, right? And then you've got like the two Byrne brothers there as well, like 4, 10s there, and each of them have represented Ireland as well. So you can't then like just divide up the games between them, and because none of them are going to get enough game time that way. You've got to be able to say, and as well, it's in terms of like, it's not just game time, because they're all at the stage now where they should be starting games for or having starting a lot of games, and you're not going to get that with 4 10s through a season. Like, yes, somebody might get injured or whatever, and then you're glad that one of them didn't leave. But other than that, if you have all of them fit, which isn't going to happen every week, it means that more than likely 2 of them are going to be out of the playing squad, and that can't be good. And even when like the Six Nations comes around or wherever, it's you're only filling in for a few weeks, and that really should be for younger players or players who are only club players, as it were, that don't have ambitions to, like, all those players still have ambitions to play 10 for Ireland. So for me, it's a bit weird. And the way it is at Ulster as well, that they were coming towards the end of the season, they didn't have anything signed off. But you look at the rest of the squad there, like, they got 2 fantastic 9s. And I don't know why they can't get a look in for Ireland, honestly, because you look at the way, Cooney and Doak, fantastic seasons last year, both have the ability to kick as well, so that if your kicker is off a little bit of form, they can easily, jump in there and take over as well. But maybe just their playing style doesn't suit the Irish style, but it certainly can't be on form that they're being overlooked for Ireland. But then, you look at, some of the fantastic players who are coming in the second row, the back row there as well. You've got, Stewart coming in there too. He's got I think for him, this season is about developing his all-around game, really getting that line-out throw right, improving his scrummaging, etc., and not just being kind of a try scorer. He's got to have more to his game as well. But I think Ulster will certainly be looking to have a better season than they did last season. But having said that, in the end, it wasn't like an absolute disastrous season. Finished 6th in the log, and then they didn't really perform against Leinster in that quarter final, but they did perform against Leinster a few weeks before, when they beat them in the league as well. They did the double over Leinster in the league last year, I'm pretty sure. So that's something to certainly crow about. So, not an absolute disaster for them, but given where they had been previous seasons, where it looked like, that was Ulster who were building towards being the next Irish team after Leinster to lift the league, whether it was called Celtic League or Pro 14 or wherever it was, or URC, like that they were kind of the next team to come in from Ireland, at least, to challenge that. But then they got pipped by Munster, obviously. So that's kind of the level they were at, where they were in that top 2 or 3 in the league, and they weren't there last year. So they'll want to kind of get that competitive again this year. But starting out, it's a tough game for them against the reigning champions, Glasgow. Absolutely fantastic last year. It feels like to me as a squad, they took a mental step, huge mental step forward, because we talked about it before the playoffs, where they had the, all through the season, they would be fantastic. Then they get into knockout stages and disappear. They got absolutely, humiliated a few seasons ago against Leinster in a quarterfinal, 70 odd points against them, wherever. And then, they hadn't turned up in big European games, and they didn't turn up the season before last, really, in the knockout stages either. But boy, did they turn up last year. Absolutely fantastic. You look at that run, to the final, and actually the run to get them where they were as well. After, like, they went down to South Africa, they got pretty much sure they got a win, and then they were competitive as well against the Bulls. Although, in fairness, I'll call myself out on this. I felt at the time that it was more that the Bulls had taken the foot off the gas, but having seen what happened afterwards, I can absolutely admit that I was wrong, and people who said that it wasn't, that it was actually Glasgow's effort, genuine effort, that actually brought them back into that game. I can absolutely admit that I was wrong on that one. And then from there, getting themselves into position, to get through those playoffs, and then the playoffs themselves, like they start with, a really, good win there against the Stormers, 27-10. And, you have to think as well, the Stormers, who, had been to the final the previous 2 seasons, champions the first year in the URC, then finalists the year after, where they lost narrowly to Munster in that final. And, Glasgow just controlled that game, and it was a fantastic performance. Then they stepped it up in the semi-final, then, going away to Thomond Park against Munster and pulled out a brilliant win there, 17-10. Then they go to the final against the Bulls, who, another team who came in, you look at their run to the final as well, 30 points to 23 against Benneton. Very competitive game, but the Bulls had the edge. 25 points to 20 against Leinster. Again, competitive game, but Bulls had the edge. And they would have felt, there was a lot of talk about the altitude and it being a home game for the Bulls as well. The travel for Glasgow, everything seemed to be against Glasgow, but they absolutely delivered in that final. Fantastic final as well. You got to give the Bulls credit for delivering, an amazing final. And the whole season last year was just brilliant. And, every team played a part in it as well. But these two in the final really did kind of bring it to that peak, that crescendo as well at the end, and just capped off what was an amazing season. And Glasgow, amazing champions as well. And, I look at this game and I honestly can't pick a winner. And it's really difficult because, like, my Irishness is pulling me towards Ulster in this, and the fact that they're home. As I said, it's going to be a new start for them. But Glasgow were just so good all through last season. I'm going to do something that I rarely do, which is plug against an Irish team at home, when they're not playing another Irish team. And I'm going to go for Glasgow in that one. Okay, so this is a long one. I didn't expect it to be as long as it was, because I basically put in most of my season preview in here as well, and not just a preview of the games themselves, but those are our predictions for the season. I think it's going to be a fantastic season, and I hope you guys are going to be there all the way through. As always, we are we're going to cover as much URC as we can. We're also going to cover Champions Cup. We're going to be doing Six Nations. We're going to be getting as much women's rugby as we can in there as well. We're also going to see what else we can cover on there. I don't know, like the last few seasons, I've had a few kind of guest appearances on the, like on the channel as well. I hope to do that as well. I'm not too sure who, because, other people from other channels. They're obviously busy with their own stuff as well, so it can be very difficult to find time for both parties to be available. But I'm going to do my best on that too. And there are other types of videos that I want to make as well, but they've got to be like last year. There was one I kept talking about it that I wanted to do, but I've realized that basically for something like that, I've got to plan it more and not just say I'm going to do it. I've got to plan it and then kind of spring it on you guys and say, there we go, there's one. So maybe this year I'm hoping to do maybe, I'm going to say 2 to 5 of those during the season, because there are ones that are going to take weeks to do, not just a few days or a couple of hours talking to, or a couple of wherever, talking to the camera. But yeah, for those ones, I've realized, with the way things are with life and, with work and getting sick and wherever, I can't just, overcommit to things, as it were. So I'm going to commit to what I can, which is every URC round, we're going to have a preview and we're going to have a review, and then any matches that I can watch, because I only review games that I actually watch in full. I never do like highlights or anything like that. That's for like, the round review, as it were. But a review of a single game has to be based on watching the full game, because otherwise I feel like I'm cheating you guys, right? If I just watch a highlights package and try and make it out as if I watched the entire game. So whatever games I can watch, they're the games I'm going to cover. Obviously, because of the fact that I'm Irish, it's going to be mostly Irish provinces games that I cover. But I think, hopefully, at least by this stage, I've established the fact that I at least try not to be biased in my coverage of things, and hopefully that's kind of come across in my stuff, and I promise to keep doing that. As I said, I'm a fan of the URC, and also I'm waiting as well. Like we still don't have the for Sunday, September 22nd yet. It's just TBC. So obviously it's a South African team. So they're, when their season kicking off is the other thing as well. So once, getting them back in the mix as well is always great. So, but for now, that is the end of this one. And we're going to then, as I said, we'll cover some of the games over the weekend, and then we'll have a review at the start of the week. So thank you for all your support over the previous seasons. If this is your first season here as well, welcome to the channel. Stick around. We're going to have a wild ride, I'm sure, through the URC season and the rest of the rugby season as well, and we'll have some fun together. You guys take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next one.